You are watching Xirtus.
11/22/63. One other aspect of that is that the time travel inception date, basically the day he lands on when he goes back in time, is October 21st, 1960. So it's the Back to the Future
Right.
day, same day as Back to the Future when he lands in the future. Uh, so that's just an interesting quirk. I'm sure Stephen King maybe chose that on purpose, but it's like it's a huge day. If it's the 42nd week of the year, it's my dad's birthday. It's my best friend's birthday. It's like I don't know. It's a lot of things, but 11/22/63 time travel, Back to the Future.
Yeah. So let's see. The Crusades. Martin Luther joins the theological organization. The Tokugawa leads the defeat of the rivals in the Battle of Sekigahara. The Napoleonic Wars. Boston Harbor. American Civil War. Defeated Confederate troops in the second major battle. Thomas Edison applies for the patent for the incandescent light bulb. The Switzerland Social Democratic Party is founded.
Okay, wait. Edison is important because if you go back and you look at Marvel's current representation of like multiple timelines, which is Kang, and the newest, I think it's season 2 of Loki, they basically have Kang working for Edison.
Right.
But of course, like we have certain things that are happening, including this second Trump presidential like candidacy, like that are tightly wound to time control, like time manipulation.
The shooting at the movie Rust happened on October 21st with Alec Baldwin.
Oh, another thing that I just remembered was that okay, so it's October 21st, 19.
Oh, in Iraq,
15.
Barack Obama withdrew the troops from Iraq. October 21st.
So Babylon. Let's call it what it is. Let's call a spade there.
Oh yeah. Okay. So all right, October 21st, 1915 was 666 weeks before Stanley Kubrick was born, and it was also the day that the first vocal voice transmission was sent across the Atlantic from the United States to Britain. So there's a confluence of stuff. There's probably more on that day that I can't remember. But, yeah.
Hey, can I just point out that somebody in the comments, Mytho class says, I recently saw that the 3 Back to the Future movies, there are 8 timelines that end up being created and they never get back to number 1.
Correct.
And so like I like the way that this whole communication started with Andreas pointing out that, you know, you have this Eric Stoltz thing. It's kind of meta because it's like the idea that that's like part of the movie. You know what I mean? Like that is an alternate timeline universe because characters change. Like, yeah, Crispin Glover changes, Elizabeth Shue replaces girlfriend, like all this kind of stuff. It's like that all feels like in the movie itself, that's part of it. Although Crispin Glover, you could argue that was for its own reasons or whatever, but where's that line really between them actually doing it on purpose, like with the girlfriend, versus, oh, there was a disjoint? Like, and even the explanation for Eric Stoltz that, oh, he saw it as a tragedy and they were like offended. They didn't want him to be like, that gets weird. You know, maybe he felt really strongly. Like, I wasn't there. I don't know how he communicated that or what that conversation was like. Was like literally a fight? Like, that'd be cool to see if that was literally a fight.
He just refused to do. I mean, they allege that he refused to do it funny. You know, and it was just he was doing it so serious.
He wanted it to be a serious thing, yeah.
Yeah, which just makes perfect sense from the way he was described it. I think that was part of the plan. Is that there's
I mean, if we knew the script, we would think different because in the script actually, am I muted? No,
no, I hear you.
No.
So when he goes back in, okay, so you know how like when he goes back and he climbs into the window and it's the wrong house, it's like a black family. And then he leaves and he goes back and he changes things. When he goes back to his family, instead of Biff being the servant of the house, it was the black family. And Crispin Glover, he doesn't say that outright, but you can assume that that's what he's talking about. He says that that's one of the main objections. But if you can imagine that Eric Stoltz reading the same script would be like, oh, no, wait. Like if they go back and this is like a black family is like their maids in the same house, that's kind of a tragedy. It's kind of like you're because the whole thing about Back to the Future is you're getting nothing for something or something for nothing, right? You're materializing all of these wealth by changing the sins of your father, so to speak.
Right. And there's
And the
also
chicks
this,
for free.
and there's a
And it's for
sacrifice
free.
made. I think Eric Stoltz could also be kind of likened to the first Tin Man, right? Like the Tin Man is replaced in The Wizard of Oz. So there's kind of this, there is something there with characters that are being replaced in these movies over and over again, and what they're saying about it. And also just that kind of Freudian level, you know, the sexuality. I think that that's something that we need to like analyze a bit more also. Why
Analyze
is it?
it?
That's wild to me. I figured Stoltz was not appropriate for Back to the Future because he looked too 80s. Like you can put Marty or Michael J. Fox into the past and he looked like he could be from the 50s. Crispin Glover's looked like he could be from the 50s. Eric Stoltz looks like he was a fish out of water, bro.
Dude, Barely Human 11 has that video that was never released to the public that's like a Kabbalistic interpretation of Back to the Future. I think it's like 10 minutes. It's like the same length as Back to the Future Predicts 9/11, but it's all about like Freudian sexuality issues and subliminal sex stuff throughout Back to the Future with like a Kabbalistic interpretation. Like it's nuts. He never uploaded it.
Prophecy.
I need to see it badly.
Yeah.
Because Oedipus is all about prophecy, right? You get the prophecy.
Sure. Completely. I mean, that's what it is. And like, that's interesting. Yeah. Keep going back to Louis.
I'm just going to keep pushing this and see how far I can get away with it. And look at me. My God. I don't know. I think Back to the Future, the Freudian stuff is really important, or they wouldn't have done it. The fact that it's so much about, the love of the mother for the son and the son for the mother, and this sort of, I don't know. Did you want to expand on what you think that's about from a Kabbalistic perspective?
He was showing the significance of Yesod, and he has like, it's all done just like Back to the Future Predicts 9/11 with that like epic, like kind of like the way that he articulates things visually. And so he shows certain examples throughout Back to the Future that relate to implied sexual stuff, and that it's like Kundalini based. So like, you know, Joe does this kind of treatment where he's like going through like that. There's basically like a like time travel as it's relating to transcendence, like energetic transcendence. So I wouldn't do it anywhere near justice, but he has this like full epic video that he only shared like privately and then never uploaded it. And that might be partly my fault a little bit because I like kind of criticized it, but I didn't expect that my criticism would keep him from doing what he like releasing it. So to this day, I don't know if it's ever ended up on.
You wrecked the timeline, David. What can we say?
It was dumb. You know? I gave him kind of a hard time about it, but it was just because I was really affected by it. But that's what makes for good art. And I try to tell him that afterwards that, you know, but I don't know if it was really just me. He just decided not to. But it's like good art can offend, you know, or at least affect people. You know?
If you go back to that picture of 11/22/63 with Franco, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so there was an actual timeline adjustment within the storyline because when Stephen King wrote the book, it had to do with Morgenstield. Morgenstield was considered to not be a CIA or not proven to be a CIA. Morgenstield was the basic Russian connection to Oswald while he was in Dallas. And so there's a whole part of 11/22/63 where Stephen King bases his whole idea that it was not a conspiracy on Morgenstield. And he blacks out basically the part where Morgenstield and Oswald could have had a conspiracy in the book is basically unavailable to the hero of the story to actually determine. So he can't hear any conspiracy that actually happened. And of course, when the main hero goes back into the future, everything's screwed up after he frees Kennedy. Like George Wallace becomes president, there's a nuclear exchange, and everything's a lot shittier than it would be. So there's a certain amount of propaganda in 11/22/63.
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of like gatekeeping going on. However, when the series was made, Morenshield was actually admitted to be in the CIA, so they had to change the series. They actually had to adjust for the fact that he had connections to the CIA. This was the difference between the book and the series, where I think that's the actual scene where they're like waiting outside of his Morenshield's like business, and then he like chokes him and makes him admit that he's CIA, but he's not trying to kill the president. Like, it's this weird rewrite in the timeline that they had to do because the information of JFK had changed between when he wrote the book and when
It seems like someone ingratiated it, and I get the feeling that Stephen King has to be a ghostwriter for, he has to have a bunch of CIA.
Severe
he's a
work,
front.
so
He's a CIA front for a lot of these, the USAID front, whatever you want to call it. But him putting out the series that leads to the point that you find out, yeah, okay, we did it, but if we had not done this, the Cuban nuclear crisis would have led to World War III. The same World War III from H.G. Wells' Back to the Future that happens in 1964, right? Because they have this World War I, World War II, and then in the original Time Machine, he predicted in 1964 there would be a nuclear crisis, and this is all written in 1899. So there's like a timeline that we're keeping on.
Isn't it? It's the exact same. I mean, it's an excuse for the idea that JFK was ritually sacrificed. Because what is the idea that like we're killing this guy because everything would be really bad if we don't do that? Which is the exact same thing they say when we're sacrificing a virgin on the pyramid. It's like, well, we're going to have really bad weather, so we're going to sacrifice to make the gods happy. And it's the same principle. Totally. And that whole that show, the whole way it bends around and like
sacrifice in March, plenty of stuff.
Well, yeah, we saved JFK, but that led to the apocalypse. So it was good that we killed him. It's just like, come on. It's just, but there's some, I mean, they're casting him in the role of like Christ. He's the Christ sacrifice, and maybe it's deeper.
But that's that classic, like Ricky Gervais always goes over that. Like if you had the opportunity to kill Hitler, and then you come to find out that all these terrible things, worse things happened. If it wasn't like it just there's always that idea. It's a philosophical.
1122 is 112263 is tropey as hell. Like, it's bad. Mm-hmm. It's really weird because it's basically like the butterfly effect, using the 20th century example of what you would want to do the ultimate right. Like, you either go back and you save Kennedy, or you go back and you kill Hitler. And in fact, Marvel did this. They created one of the most popular characters that have been created in Marvel since 2013 has been Cosmic Ghost Rider, which is a version of Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, who becomes the Spirit of Vengeance, aka Ghost Rider, and then time travels. He goes back to kill baby Thanos, and then adopts baby Thanos. But it's really like the pot of ultimate like multiverse. You have the Punisher as the Ghost Rider, who time travels to go back and kill Hitler.
Dude, you know how often when I'm talking about Polanski's Ghost Rider, people hear Ghost Rider and they get all confused, and I don't go to the trouble to be like Ghost Writer.
Well, I think you hear that, and I think the 90s cartoon, and I get really excited. So it's